Welcome, everybody, to day two of AISS 2021. The panel session scheduled here is the Application Security Program, delivering security in fast-paced digitization. We have some incredible speakers lined up. But before I do that, let me introduce you to the moderator of the session, Mr. Navneethan M. Navneethan carries a deep passion and love for cybersecurity. He is presently the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer and Head IT at Grow. I will now move on and give the mic over to Mr. Navneethan to introduce the rest of the panelists. Thank you.
Thanks, Anisha.
Thanks, Anisha.
Very good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure and honor to be part of DSA, and it's a very great topic to have a conversations on application security program, which is delivering security in fast-paced digitalization world. Actually, so we have wonderful leaders with great experience, and really we would like to invite the great people to have a conversations on the great the focus area of application security. It's a pleasure to welcome Mr. Jayesh Warrior. He is the Vice President of Sales at Induspace. He was previously at Practice Head of ABG Cybersecurity and Risk Services. Please, Jayesh on stage.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks, Navneethan, for the introduction. I also thank DSCI for having me on the panel, and look forward to having a very healthy and insightful discussion with all of you.
Great, Jayesh. So I'd like to invite Ms. Shivani Harni. She's head of information security at Union Civil Limited, with an extensive knowledge and the great experience at cybersecurity leadership, say from the end to end. Please welcome Shivani on stage. Okay, great. Just meantime, would like to invite Kavita KG. I mean, she's released train managers at Northwest Group. It's like a great banking in the European, and she has more than 14 plus experience in the cybersecurity, as well as a DevOps and overall applications and security integrations from end to end. So please welcome Kavita on stage.
Thank you, Navneethan. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with the panelists and the audience and associated with NASSCOM today.
Great, Kavita. Amazing. Not that the least, the great leader, is in long stint with Target, I can say. So Mr. Visagan Suprailu is a senior director at technology and Target with extensive experience in cybersecurity and the tech side. So happy to be, have on stage Visagan.
Thank you, Navneethan. Happy to be part of this conversation. Excited to be sharing this dais with a lot of industry experts.
Amazing, folks. Great. Maybe let's start with the context, and then really just we'd like to extract the essence of rich experience at the same time, just what you have enforced across your journey, and to move ahead, and then to share the takeaway for the all the audience. Amazing. From the application security, it's like hot, right? I mean, if you take most of the organization, now I can see all the startups, it start with applications. It's not like where the businesses play very critical, important role, right? Absolutely, it's application is the one. It's playing the vital role, and based on these applications, we're ramping up, and then they are making the end users operations easy, and then the great experience what they are giving to the end users will move them into the the right directions. So that way this application security play very significant and important role from the end to end. That's the one side. Other side, of course, we have a lot of challenges on the application side, right? Because if you see this last 5 years, close to 61% of attack happen, it's a purely on the application side. It's like web applications. I can say from the end to end what it is really it has happened. And of course, even though it is applications have a critical role, but it's ultimately integrated with the infrastructure. It's like average time of close to 254 days it has taken to detect and then prevent if there is an incident in the application side, or it's maybe on the infra side. On top of that, it's like close to 57 percentage. So they have reported it's like a financial loss. I mean, still we are not counted like there is unnoticed event. It's our many actually, but still the reported even close to 57 percentage. It's a purely on the financial losses. It's a purely on the web application side. And top of that, now just we have a lot of MITRE attack and then kill chain attacks. Everything's experienced. We have well groomed the playbook, but still we are facing a lot of challenges from end to end on the application side. So this conversation is like a close to the 45 minutes where we are going to talk about from the first decade to now, like where we are in the applications, and then what are the key things which needs to be taken. And currently the current hottest, maybe most of the CISOs and CTOs are busy with Log4j, which is the major vulnerabilities which is shaking the entire world. So we are going to talk about very interesting and keynotes from the each leaders. Great. So I'll have to start with Jayesh. Maybe since you have the background of on the past as well as the present, how you have worked out. Really, just would like to understand how the application security is important, and there is a need of art in the current state as well as in the decade before, because the application has boomed up in the last 10 years. We can see that, right, in terms of cloud and then infrastructure, everything is scaled up. And really just we wanted to see how the importance of this application security from the the past decades as well as the current digital era from end to end you are seeing, because you have been then both environment. Just we want to know whether it is past is the same or you are finding any significant changes and then importance which needs to be focused, or which in the industry is focusing from end to end.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Navneetan. Interestingly, I just came out of a call with a very, very senior leader in the industry, and pretty much talking on the same grounds, and a veteran in this for almost 30 years. And then he was also saying that a lot of significance has been coming in the application security space, and there's a lot of initiatives that's going on. But to start with, I was just reading an interesting, maybe a sentence or a anecdote or whatever you can say, and it was a bit humorous in the beginning, but then I could see the seriousness behind it, and it was talking about applications are an attractive and a most vulnerable target for any organization. It's becoming predominant nowadays with the adoption of digitization, which is a business need and it's a given, and it's increasing day by day. And it's hygiene. It's a hygiene for any business to be productive, to be very speedy, and for survival, right? So the options that organizations have is that as building is to build more and more sophisticated and feature-rich applications. So that's one part of it. Second one is agility of application. You cannot have too much of latency or vulnerability because of the vulnerability of or a bug in the application. It has to be fixed pretty fast. Uh, uh, Third one is either we have a battery of people, and it was resonating very well with the limitation of shortage of resources, skilled resources to build applications. So another option is to go out in the market and see it there are applications which are there which can meet the business requirements and build APIs or build integrations on top of it, right? So uh, uh, these are the things that is coming up predominant nowadays. And other interesting thing that I was reading, quite a while ago, was what Forrester said is what IT leaders are talking about nowadays is, as I said earlier, digitization is a must, and that's what business is wanting or application owners are wanting it, and that's very much to the strategy. The second aspect, which is gaining significance from, and what I've been seeing over the years, is that security, which was at some point of time, backstage discussion, has become a front stage discussion. A lot of board discussions are happening on security. So there's a lot of alignment with the business and the security. And the third one, which most of the IT leaders like nowadays, is about moving to cloud or migration to cloud. Because of the features and flexibility that it gives. But overarching to all is customer centricity, customer delight, customer satisfaction. That's the most important thing nowadays. Having said that, and there are a lot of other points that we can talk about, right? But from an application security standpoint, uh, if you look at it from the past to now, and if you look at the top trends or top vulnerabilities and stuff like that, it pretty much remains same. We talk about SQL or stuff like that, but then the severity that it can create nowadays is pretty significant. And many research papers we have been reading about it, and recent vulnerability that has come in is also no different than as Namita, as you rightly said. So and with the emergence of shadow IT, boundaryless data centers or cloud applications, all of this has just increased the severity of an application. So the way I would like to say is the impact for an application vulnerability nowadays is pretty serious. It could lead to compromise of data. It could lead to financial siphoning. It can have brand impact and a lot of other stuff and significant impact on your business. So at the end of the day, very impactful, and it can damage and it can bring the organizations down. So I would say that application security, the importance has gone up, and organizations need to look at it pretty seriously. And I think that's the way it is heading to.
Amazing, Jayesh. It's like the key stuff you have touched it. I mean, in terms of priority of customer has changed.
Yes.
I mean, the customers earlier they were focusing on only the functionality. Now it's not only the functionality. Really, the people want to have it in terms of usability, and then they want to have a great experience, right? So that's play a very significant role. And on top of this experience, really, just we have to focus on the application securities also. It's a great point, Jess. So on top of that, really, Visa, just I want to get it from you, like because you are in the target, and then just I would like to hear this experience of how you are managing, because now as JS has mentioned, like in terms of customer requirement has changed, right? You are in the customer facing side, like the customer requirement has changed, and their experience also just really they wanted to go up, and how it's happening actually, how you are managing in terms of speed and quality of secured application development, maybe because it's not just one go, right? It should be a holistic. It should not be the silo. Uh, Most of the time, just organization look on the product should be out as and when the security always take the backstage. So how you guys are balancing in terms of speed and quality from the application security standpoint?
Thank you, Navneet. I think Jayesh alluded to that. Speed is the name of the game, right? Uh, if you don't, it's a question of survival when you talk about speed. You got to churn out features and capabilities every day to remain competitive. So that is on the speed side. And quality, when we look at secured application, quality becomes a priority for the security organization. So for me, some of the grounding principles when I think about how do we get agility and also make sure there is quality in terms of secured application development, the first thing that comes to my mind is the idea of security cannot be an afterthought. If you need speed, security is the table stakes, right? Now you cannot always come catching up at the end, being a toll gate, kind of say, hey, can I go live now? Can I release this future? Because a whole lot of work has already been done, and you're almost sitting on a checklist to say, can I make sure that these things are happening, right? So security can never be an afterthought if you're aspiring for speed and agility. The second thing that I can think of, again, Jayesh alluded to that, is the customer piece. Um, At Target, we use these words: voice of customer, voice of engineering, and voice of technology. Voice of customer is, I need this now, I need this running smooth and fine, right? Voice of engineering is the team that is working on those capabilities, the engineering team. And the technology is the tech stack that you choose to be rolling out in your organization. I almost feel like there should be a fourth category called voice of security, right? If you're sitting down with a product team or a developer, when they're whiteboarding an idea, that's when security should start, right? If you don't do that, speed and agility will be an aspiration goal all the time. The second aspect that I can think of from a target standpoint is the idea of enterprise architecture, right? When I use the word enterprise architecture, at Target, we have a governing body that looks at what tech stack, what tools, what frameworks are we rolling out, and how do we control the shadow IT, people going and buying software, rolling it out, right? As an organization, if you take a 10,000 feet view to say, how do I make sure that there are patterns, practices that are consistent across the organization? I could be fancied by a particular tool, and I, as a developer, could believe that this is going to kill it, right? But it doesn't work that way for an organization of any size, including Target. So it's very important that you engage in the enterprise architecture conversation. The last thing I'll add to that idea of speed and quality is, how do we make sure that automation and self-service becomes the corner pillars of speed and agility, right? If somebody is going to chase down a security person for every left turn and right turn that you're going to take in the development journey, you're not going to hit speed, and you're not going to have control on quality, right? That's where self-service and automation becomes paramount importance. And at Target, we use the word called midnight developer. Go meet the developer where he is versus asking him to come and do 10 things as a security person. You go to their table, understand their priorities, understand their design language, and offer them solutions that matter to them there versus, again, the toll gate approach. So in an application security world, we talk about SAST, DAST, pen test, right? How do you make sure that these are sustainable self-serve capabilities for the developers? And as simple as, if I can scan for a vulnerability, I can fix it, I should be able to do a remediation scan to make sure it's working. And for this, you don't need a security guy on the table, right? So imagine those possibilities of enabling self-service and automation, then you go a long way in providing that agility to that organization.
Great, Vishak. And I mean, just you brought a very important point as the voice of customer and voice of tech, voice of engineering. Really, just we have to have a voice of cybersecurity team also, right? That's a really interesting note. And top of that, it should not be a toolkit stuff also, because it's everything is done. Then on top of that, just sitting doing the reworking it doesn't make sense. It should be a integrated and holistic approach where we can get into the developer table and then understand what exactly it's happening and how we can. It's like a culture stuff, right? How we are going to connect and then take it forward. It's a really the great one. And of course, I think it's changing now. I mean, it's not like earlier. I think some extent whether people have taken as everyone responsibility and things are moving on the right track. Great. So in addition to see in terms of speed and then agility and then secure application, really just I want to understand, maybe from Kavita's standpoint, like vulnerability standpoint. Of course, the developer, it's a keep developing. Security team, they are keep enforcing the controls. But if you take a top 10 of vulnerabilities, maybe from end to end, or maybe I can say the last 10 years, it's remained same, right? Maybe SQL injections, of course, the first positions, maybe now 2021, it may be on the third positions. Broken authentication, sensitive data. So, like, what are the top 10 if you take now? It's remained same. Only the location is moved, actually. So, do you think, like, maybe fundamentally, are we missing something? Because that means it's not being addressed, right? Of course, accident is see there is an accident happen. Maybe some places where we'll have it's like a caution, right? If there is accident place, go slow or just take a right phase of turning and all the things where we have a significance. Then maybe we can avoid some extent of accident over there. But this top 10 ops remain continues the same for the last 10 years. Maybe do we think like in between the developers and in terms of security engineering team, maybe something is missing. There is a gap.
Okay, yeah, Navneet, you're right. It's extremely important to be cognizant of these security risks and vulnerabilities that Open Web Application Security Project is giving us, right, year on year, and refreshing this list. And the list does include SQL injection, cross-site scripting, broken access control, authentication mechanisms, insecure design, data exposure, sensitive data exposure, etc. I think SQL injection was kind of top one until recently, and this year broken access control has taken over. So why do we keep seeing them year on year? That was your right question. To start with, I think Jayesh already covered security culture. The culture is security is not my job. That's quite prevalent. It is somebody else's responsibility. Security should not be an afterthought, is what Visagan mentioned, and that's exactly the primary cause of it. Second, again, Jayesh touched upon it, skilled resources. We have a lot of amateur programmers coming in because of the digitization and accelerated application development happening across the globe. And hence, you will find lack of knowledge to solve any security risks and issues that arise from application development. And the DevSec Ops, where we are discussing in other panels as well, there's a lack of DevSec Ops approach, which is shift left of security, having security through automated unit testing that automation Visagan spoke about, helps us to identify these early in the development lifecycle rather than regret it later. And as organizations, are we spending too much time chasing these threats in 0 days rather than measuring our current security effectiveness? We seem to be focusing more and more on the newer technologies rather than ensuring, getting value and security from the technology that we already have got. Fifth is about definitely open source software that developers across the globe use. It's tremendously increased, but there's whole lot of vulnerabilities contained in them. Thanks to Log4j, all of us are working over the weekend and Christmas holidays to fix it. And logs and monitors, the underdogs, they're often underestimated as security tools. Either we don't actively, log it, or we are not able to track the trends and the failures from the application. And again, lack of intelligence scanning tools, with equipped with automated penetration testing in the SDLC, overall SDLC stages, that is also a problem there. Main thing I would say, working in agile projects, agile manifesto says working software over comprehensive documentation. In most of the programs that I have worked with, I noticed the team has more focus on time to market and faster delivery, and a reduced focus on comprehensive design, leading to some of the secure design flaws. And last but not the least, overall awareness of secure design and coding with amateur programmers coming in is extremely important. And we should probably start it from the curricula in schools and colleges where, we teach programming languages. Definitely, as IoT is exploding, all of us are carrying loads of attack vectors through our mobile phone and email attachments, messages. We should be extremely aware of the security and vulnerabilities.
Great, Kavita. I mean, just you brought it. Very important point is where we have to focus on the shift left, and then second one is where we have to make awareness from the school side. Of course, a couple of key countries they started. I mean, in terms of creating the cyber awareness, it's not only the end users. I mean, how we can defend also where they have started to taught, and then they are moving ahead actually. And just you touched upon just very important point is agile. I mean, couple of startups really they have challenges in terms of having this agile, right? Saying that it's like too much of documentations, too much of spending, not on the productions, but maybe on the daily stand-up meetings and all the things and all. So maybe how do, because that's what, if you take a developer, maybe you can ask them to give a code maybe on maybe certain date and certain features. They are happy to do that, but if you try to enforce security on top of this coding, what they're doing, no, then only this their time, effort, and then things are deviating actually. So how you're managing in this agile? I mean, do you think it's agile on cybersecurity is more effective, or maybe it will eat up the developers and then cybersecurity engineers bandwidth?
I still think design is the key element in the software development lifecycle. We do need SMEs, security SMEs, technology architects, and the developers working on the design to corner it and nail it from a security aspect of view. And once you've nailed that from an application design point of view, each individual component that can be done today is over API or microservice, and we do have coding standards and checklists, which should definitely include secure checklists. Do we have segregated segregation of duties with respect to authentication? Are we using OAuth 2? Do we have proper access tokens involved? I mean, all of these should be part of the design checklist. which should ultimately, the developers should be using it. We should probably enable developers, give them more information and comfort to start developing code. And with the automated testing in place, which give you the static analysis and dynamic analysis to, understand the security vulnerabilities, it probably aids them to do development faster.
Great, Kavita. I think this will help us to move on the right track with Agile, and without the people overburdening on other documentations and other steps and all. Great, Kavita. So really, just I wanted to hear from Shivani on because by having the speed and agility at the same time, the priority on the vulnerability. On top of that, really, just I wanted to have a security by designs, like how we can have a security by designs by collaborating with the developers, maybe engineering and product team, because it's not only you cannot develop the applications, maybe the secure applications only with the developers, right? Absolutely, it's connected with
Yeah.
your product team, engineering team. It's like well connected dots. So how we can enforce the security by design, Shivani, because you would have done it on the civil side, and then it's like more of the fintech as well as your previous experience added the value. Love to hear from you, Shivani.
Absolutely. Thank you, Naveen. So, right, I think what Kavita brought up for Vasili and Ajesh, I think we're all talking about the same subject. What I would want to say is, we've been hearing or we've been saying, I think in the past million times that security is everyone's responsibility. However, you'll only hear the security professionals saying that loud out so that people can hear within your organizations and outside. But like Kavita mentioned about the shift left culture, I think even to have the shift left culture, there are efforts from both technical perspective and from the governance perspective that we as a security professional have to have implemented across our organizations, so that across the business units, across the products, etc., different teams what we have. One easy way, or I would say a different way, what we have done in the past, during my career, is setting up a small steering committee, right? I mean, we know when a product gets launched or an application gets launched, a lot of discussions happen on the business, evaluation, finance side of it. How much kind of revenue are we going to generate out of this product or an application? From legal compliance perspective, and the finance guys are also on that. So basically, the idea here is to maybe form a committee which will have representation across all of these different areas, right? And then InfoSec is also a part of that committee, which will then, make it a holistic program where all of us have our own individual roles to play within that committee, and you give away your own inputs. So that way, when the idea comes up, even when there is a thought of having a new product to be launched or a new application to be launched, we know which committee are we supposed to go and present this to, and make this process as a visible process within the organization. So every department gets to say what they need to say, and InfoSec can play a key role within that. So apart from this, I mean, once you are in the committee, of course, you will need to, from the InfoSec side of it, whether it is an application or a product, we definitely need to have our own checklist ready. I mean, if it's a product, then, what kind of do's and don'ts do I have from InfoSec perspective? Am I required to do a threat modeling exercise, for example, to see attack vectors, to see internal attack vectors and not external attack vectors? How am I doing from our organization policy perspective, right? And then, of course, the governance model of that particular product. Okay, I know these scans have to be done. I know this threat modeling exercise has to be done. But what after that? We just can't say everything, and then when it's on the production, that's when the real work starts, right? So what is the governance we want to put across post the product is actually in production, or the post application is in the production? So I think all of these different aspects have to be thought through. Only then, we are able to design, like you said, security by design can be effectively managed across the organization. And then advantage of doing this is, we have visibility of our own things in the environment. I think that is the that is the most important thing when it comes to, when we are in a crisis situation, like what all of us are today.
Great thought, Shivani. I think in the nutshell, like just you were saying, it's we should have a very clear steering committee and governance that's set from the top to bottom to ensure that what are the changes it's going to happen. It has to be approved by the respective stakeholders to move ahead and all that. Actually, it's one more lead questions from here. Maybe any of the
Absolutely.
leader can feed the input actually. It's like as Shivani has mentioned, it's like two interface, right? One is on the enterprise side, just where we have a very clear change advisory board. If any changes, so you cannot make it up, just like that, actually, right? I mean, really, we should have a clear inventory on things. Other side is where we have a startup. The startup will have a different cultures, right? They may not have a change advisory board. They may not have a release management. They may not have the those overall deployment and rollback plan and all the steps and all. It's like the try it out. If it is working, it's good. If it's not out, just roll back and then try it out another thing. It's so dynamic in the startups mode actually. So maybe how you're going to balance these two actually, because the enterprise well structured, it's going on the right way, but slow phase. And startup, we are in the full speed, but it might not have the enough controls. How we are going to balance these two? So maybe it's an open question. Maybe any of the leaders would like to take it up.
I'll attempt to take that, Navneet. I think I feel it's important that any product today, if you're a startup and you know for sure the threat vectors and the implications of something going wrong. So I'd be very surprised for any startup to kind of put security as a backseat item. So it should be part of something that's very important for their navigation or growth story, right? That's the first thing that I can think of. The second thing that on your question about how do we balance on one side enterprise is structured, slow. The conversation that we should have with product owners or the business is the whole idea of friction versus experience, right? On one side, you want to make sure that you give a great experience. That's what startups or probably a lot of organizations are aiming for, to make sure that we are able to deliver a lot of good value, give it seamless experience. But on the same time, it's also about balancing that act of friction. How do we enable, especially in the startup systems, how do we abstract some of the security behind the scenes, right? There are a lot of options that you look at in terms of integrating seamlessly with different tools. The idea that I'm proposing here is, if you want to again move fast as a startup but still be compliant with security, it is important that you always go to the table with the idea of what is the priority here, right? Are we looking at the future first, or the experience first, or is it more important to keep the customer data safe or the engagement safe? So if somebody on the table, again to Shivani or Kavita's point, is always validating that conversation with the startups to say that, hey, while we know what we are going behind, here are the disasters, or here are the after efforts of things that could go wrong, right? So how do you be that sponsor, advocate, and a guide on the table, so that you don't slow them down, but really hold them accountable? Say, hey, if you're doing this, you got to be making sure that these things are done. So that's one way
Great.
that I can react to that question.
Awesome, Visagan. I think just making them aware and then making the impact and consequence, will play a significant role in maybe on the startup. It's like a great input, Shivani and Visagan. Amazing. Maybe just coming back to Jace. Jace, now, if you see these applications earlier, if you want to have application, there will be an enterprise, right? Enterprise, they will sell the application. It will be hosted in on-prem, and just people will be start using. Now it is absolutely, since cloud came into the pictures, where we have a completely SaaS model, right? As well as now, if you see this, most of the attacks also supply chain attacks. Really, it's maybe as a CISO, I should not think only protecting my environment, right? Whatever I have inbuilt, I should think about what are the applications being brought from external to internal, who are the vendors who is integrated. Similar way, just I have to think on 360-degree of protections to avoid any other threat attack on all the things and all. So now the SaaS coming to the pictures, and then how do we ensure this application is secure enough to consume? Because it's, let's take a enterprise. We may have maybe 1,000 plus SaaS applications, right? It's not so easy to ensure that as a CISO, to protect only your organizations, to ensure that what are the SaaS applications after it is secure enough. Over to you, Rajesh.
Yeah. So Navneet, see nowadays, because of the because of the dynamism in the business, it's important. It's pretty much important that we need to have a SaaS model or a consumption-based model. The reason being, we just a lot of panelists discussed about it could be resource availability or having right skill sets or performance issues in the application, updates, and security. A lot of stuff is there, right? Having said that, if you decide to go for a SaaS model or a SaaS solution, it's rather than one thing is that you protect yourself, having tall gateways or to protect yourself, but having other vendors coming in, you should make sure that they have appropriate certifications in place so that their infrastructure is secure, and also getting enough data from their side that how are the solutions that they are offering, how much safe are they, right? So it's important to have appropriate documentation so that you are able to safeguard your infrastructure, your data. Second is from an organizational perspective, as we have to be pretty much fast and pretty much agile, so that and majority of the applications or organizations are relying on applications. So as I said before, we have to make sure that whatever offerings are coming from their side has to be pretty secure. And lastly, I would say that is that robust protection mechanisms have to be in place, not only from your side, and looking at the type of attacks or volumetric attacks or instances that are coming in. It could be policy changes, modifications. So a lot of stuff is there. So few things that needs to be looked at is, one is you need to safeguard yourself, have an appropriate basic security mechanism in place, as well as look at the offerings that they are coming up with, and make sure that they have enough certifications or enough security parameters that are there before it is offered to you. So there is enough fault tolerance capabilities that has been built up.
Great, great. I mean, Maru, just how we are ensuring this our organization security the same way. Just we have to ensure that overall onboarding have enough
Yeah.
due diligence and enough controls. Before onboarding is right. That's play very significant role on that actually.
Yeah.
Great, great. Yes. See now, if you see this current environment, just if you want to build applications, it's not only on the licensed one, right? Really, there is a lot of open source communities playing very significant role in terms of to build the applications, or maybe application itself, it's coming as just open source, right? So, but still, even the usability is great, and it's been a long year, and it's built very robust systems from end to end. But still, there are 0 day, attack where it's happening from end to end. And I think most of the CISOs, roaming around and just ensuring these things are taken care at their organizations. It's like a log forging. So really, Kavita, just I wanted to hear. I mean, since most of the applications built by the open source, how do we, secure? What are the languages being written, or what are the library files is used is secure enough, right? I mean, as a CISO or head of security, maybe what level the team can go deeper, and then to ensure that like whatever we are connecting, what are the library we are using is secure enough.
Okay. Yes, Navnitan. So with the recent Log4j incident, there is an evolving need to have a good defense mechanism for open source libraries. There's a whole lot of vulnerabilities that happen from the open source libraries. What we have realized is definitely setting up the first response team to support the wider organization whenever there is a vulnerability happening, so that we have a FAQ document and what kind of patches can be done in terms of libraries. Recent Log4j, for example, has to be upgraded to 2.16, or different patches based on the versions that they use. So it's definitely setting up the first response is important. Second, we should have had or updated the web application firewall. So recently, AWS said they have updated their WAF with the Log4j attack attempts and scanning rule set. So similarly, we need to keep updating our web application firewall all the time, looking out for these vulnerabilities from the open source. We obviously have a good system of setting up alerts or probes on devices which are running these open source libraries. So today we have realized that some of the applications are not monitored because of good Apache products, but we have realized that even Apache is not foolproof. We have seen it in Equipacks, we have seen it in Log4j incident. So definitely we need to set up alerts and probes for all of those web applications. And obviously, mitigations provided by vendors have to be patched, and we shouldn't delay the patch. The case with Equifax, if you had noticed, the patch was available, but it wasn't done for 8 weeks, which resulted in a huge loss for Equifax, loss of customer data. I think we should be proactive in updating the patches and ensuring that our environment are safe and secure.
Great, Kavita. I think it's like how we are reactive and proactive. It's play very significant role on maybe if you take this open source, whatever just you have mentioned. Of
Yeah.
course, most of the CISO is deploying and then working on the same style. Thanks, Kavita. And very important and interesting areas, right? Most of the applications now earlier stage, if you take where we want to connect applications where we need a dedicated VPN, where we need a dedicated internet connectivity, right? Now if you want to push and pull any information, so API is absolutely more than enough if you want get and post or any specific informations. So that's why maybe from Shivani, just would like to hear like there's a lot of API and then supply chain attacks is happening. So how we can minimize or maybe
Right.
how we can avoid, because it's definitely it's not possible to avoid, but how do we minimize such attack in Shivani?
Right. Thanks, Navnitan. So I think the assumption here is
Shivani, I think we couldn't hear you.
can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah, better, please.
Okay, okay. So, what I was just saying is the assumption here is that the attack of this nature can occur anytime from any product or a vendor, right? I mean, you cannot control that. Definitely, we would be able to, I mean, we can try to minimize these, the effects, on us, but we would not be able to avoid it. So what I would say is, there could be a combination of technical and there needs to be a governance kind of a control as well. So technical controls when it comes to, like we all have heard about Log4j now. So what is the first action or reaction what we had, like Kavita rightly mentioned, what is our first response, right? I mean, once we were made aware about it, what is that first three things we need to do? Like, do we have like tools which can detect about these kind of vulnerabilities or attack which is happening? That is it like is there a lateral movement within our environment? Do we have these can be actually checked when we have a proper incident response plan, right? Without the incident response plan, we will not, I mean, the series of events which we have to conduct during this particular activity which is happening. I mean, am I having the visibility of the various tools what I have, like user behavior analysis tools or my IPS or my WAF? Am I looking at is my SOC team around who's looking at malicious IPs trying to, exploit this particular vulnerability today? Am I creating my, say, signatures on various devices or not? But if I have to conduct all of these things, right, definitely need a governance process in place. So
Great.
how am I documenting all of these things? We all, we do that, right? So I think it definitely technical and the governance side of it play a balance over here. Unless and until I would say what practice we need to do is, unless and until we have an incident response plan, like we all understand we have to conduct these drills, just to ensure that whatever we have documented is going to work for us or not in the time of crisis.
Great,
What are the
Shivani.
learnings which are coming out of it? So I would like to put it in that way. Yeah.
Great, Shivani. No, that's really the good thought in terms of to ensure that the API and then supply chain attacks. Amazing. Just we are running. It's like a really interesting topic, and it's a keep coming. From the great insights, inputs, and valuable thought from the each leaders. So really, just we are in the process of just winding up. I'd love to hear maybe top three items. I mean, really, just I would love to hear from Vishakan specifically on the security skills at DevSec Ops. Maybe top three items. What do you think? For the takeaway from the application security standpoint, and how
Yeah.
we can move ahead.
I would say simplify engagement with security. That is very important. It should be easy. education and awareness becomes the cornerstone. I know Shivani and Kavita mentioned about how it's a team sport. So simplification, tools rationalization, you cannot have 25 different tools that you would chase down a developer on. That's not going to help you. That's not going to help them, right? So if you can think about secure by design, security first mindset, take the team along, the enterprise along with you in terms of creating enough education and awareness. Shivani spoke about threat modeling, exploit and win tournaments, code warrior kind of tournaments. Educate and get the development, security, and ops teams know each other really well, and then allow them to empower them to own this responsibility. Entice them, right? Entice them, give them a
Great,
reason why should they care about security.
great. Just would like to hear actually.
Navneet, what I would like to say is first is be open to or receptive to adoption to SaaS solutions, because that brings in a lot of agility. But having said that, as I said earlier, bring appropriate security measures within yourself as well as adopting to any of those solutions. Second is build a strong core team, right? Because you cannot build the entire army, but at least a core team should be there who understand security and a lot of other parameters which are there. And the vendors that you're working with, let them have the security built in within themselves, right? So that's second. Third is ideally you should go for, if possible, or either a services based model, and that's what we have been doing. And then you focus on your business, you focus on your outcomes. That's important. Let them focus on their response, or let them be responsible, let them take the ownership and accountability of delivering secure outcomes to you.
Great, great, Jayesh. Kavita, would like to hear from you on quickly.
Yeah. Again, for developers, remember the acronym KISS, KISS. Keep it simple and straightforward. Just add one other S to it. Keep it simple, secure, and straightforward. Complexity adds problems to our lives. And
Great,
absolutely zero trust security strategy.
amazing, Kavita. That's well said actually. Yeah, Sivani, over to you.
So I would say that, we'll need to make the developers' lives.
Okay, looks like I think some glitches. Okay, great, folks. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for your time, and it's really just I had a the great time and really learned a lot from the each one. It's maybe from end to end in terms of security by designs, in terms of collaborations, holistic approach, awareness, and in terms of the building team on the reactive mode and prevent mode, and in terms of what needs to be taken care with the priority. It's a really amazing discussions, and really we are happy to have a wonderful conversations in the later stage also. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much for your time, and Ashwini, over to you.